I'm a reality television host. I take no pride in telling you that because in the continuum of existence, we begin with single-cell amoebas at the very bottom of the ladder. Right above it is the American reality TV host. Right above that are locusts, vermin, cockroaches, higher life forms. Could you imagine a television show that was an international success where they take 5 gay guys and send them around to teach the straight guys how to be real men? The guys you used to give wedgies to in elementary school are teaching you how to propose to your girlfriend? Maybe that has something to do with the fact that when John Lennon used to pick up a guitar 40 years ago, he sang, "I Want to Hold Your Hand." Maybe it had to do with the fact that Paul McCartney sang, "Help, I need somebody, I need you." And I don't want to get the name wrong. Our first speaker, forgive me, because I'm not used to, what? Dahi. Maybe it has something to do with how things have changed. Not "I want to hold your hand" or "I don't care about money, money can't buy me love." Rather, "I want to slap you on your ass, I want to pull your hair and then shove my item of interest into your mouth." Suddenly won't put up with it anymore. Because whereas when you're young, it's really cool to fit in, but when a man treats you like you are his subordinate, and that you exist for his pleasure, you know what? It's like what Jerry said. Oh, sorry, Ian said. That women should not be a man's slave. So let me get this right. If you're liberated to become his masturbatory material, free at last! Free at last! Then God Almighty, I'm free at last! Pornography turns women off of men. Did you ever believe you would live in an age after you were raised on fairy tales of the knight in shining armor, picking you up on a white steed and carrying you off to Never Never Land, that not one woman at a modern university would acknowledge that she needs a guy? Now, I can't do the experiment in reverse, so I ask the guys here, raise your hand if you need a woman. What he hears is, "Who wants sex right now?" Guys, you can continue this stuff. You can sing about how much she wants it and how beautiful her boobs are, etc., etc. But even as she laughs, and even as she claps, she won't even need you. And that's why men are falling to pieces today. Do you know that 1 out of 3 American men are on an antidepressant? Do you know that another 30% of American men are porn addicts? There's a live woman in their bed, a wife. And by the way, we think that the men are the really sexual ones. We think men love sex and women sort of stomach it. So the husband turns to his wife and he says, "Honey, how about some sex tonight?" And she responds, "Not tonight, honey, because I have a headache." And yet the man can have an axe lodged in his head, right? And he's still ready. Honey, I don't know how to tell you this, but you have an axe in your head. That's okay. Is your sister also ready? Well, the truth is, women are much more sexual than men. Because a woman's sexuality is rooted in her emotions. It's positively nuclear. But when you take your clothes off and he needs to put on that DVD, man, you don't feel too sexy. Because here you are, live in 3 dimensions, the real thing. And all he does is say, "Where is the remote?" Not sexy, my friends. Not sexy. Porn is the single biggest cause of women turning to other women for real intimacy. So let me conclude by telling you. The most successful television show over the past 10 years in the United States was a show called Sex and the City. You know what it was about? It was about 4 women who really can't find a man. And they turn to each other as intimate soulmates. They're not gay. They want sex with men. They're attracted to men. But they only find boys because they can't find a gentleman.
focus, if not exclusively, primarily on the porn audience, on the consumer, on male consumers and maybe their girlfriends, and maybe the girls in the audience. Mr. Hard spoke a little bit about people in the industry, right? Now, if somebody were coming to talk to you about what it would be like to try and make it as an actor in Los Angeles, and Brad Pitt came in and said, I've had a successful career, and my wife has had a successful career, it's a really good life, would you think that that's an argument for an actor's life being a good life in Los Angeles? I actually know something about women who work in the sex industry. I know some statistics you might be interested in. The average length of the career of a female porn actor in the US is 18 months. The average number of movies that woman makes in 18 months is 137. What do you think happens to her after that 18 months? Do you think she goes on to a successful career in Hollywood? Do you think that she retires on her incredible earnings that she has saved and raises her child because she's a single mother and goes to university and becomes a surgeon? You heard Mr. Hard say that condoms are not prevalent in the porn industry. I ask you to think, if you think that sex work is work just like any other work, I ask you to think about whether you think that there should be a porn table at career day. You guys have career day, in high school where you go to the cafeteria and there are people from all different professions. There are lawyers and doctors and teachers. Do you think that there should be a prostitute table and a pornographer's table? You don't have to be opposed to the legalization of pornography and prostitution to think that that might be a little disturbing. I don't think that there's probably a person in this room whose instincts are more libertarian than mine. I have no interest in censorship, none. But that doesn't mean that I want to tell a story about all pornography being films of happy naked people having sex. Right? I'm sure there is plenty of happy naked people having sex on film. But there's also stuff that I have to wonder whether it's meaningful to consent to or not. People who like to talk about sex work being work just like any other work like to talk about consent. We heard people tonight talk about consenting adults. Do you think that there are things that you can't possibly consent to? In America, it would be illegal to consent to being beat up on film, right? I can't be stabbed or punched in the face, without it being taped, and have that be legal, right? So clearly, in our society, and I think Irish society is probably very similar, there are certain things we think you can't consent to. Right? Why can't you consent to them? Maybe